This is your fault, by the way. Hi there, welcome back to Eternally Online, the place that you found because you were chronically online. I realized that to the viewers of this channel, it probably looks like I only own one single t-shirt, but I swear I own more. I just happen to wear a black t-shirt every time that I'm recording a video. I'm emo like that. Anyways, book talk. We've talked about it before and we're gonna talk about it again. Last time, we dove into the particular community that is dark romance talk. After that trauma, I sat back with a nice cup of tea, some jazz music, and hoping that I would never have to put myself through the derangement of those people again. And then everybody and their mother watched that video and I realized, fuck, I'm gonna have to do this again. Don't worry, I'm not becoming like a book talk channel, but if this video does numbers like the last one, I might consider it, just saying. Anyway, after my last video, I thought I'd seen everything that there is to see on BookTok. I mean, how can you get crazier than that? Ooh boy, was I wrong, because little to my knowledge, there was another completely unexplored side of BookTok that might be even more unhinged than what dark romance had to offer. Enter monster romance. Where do I even begin? It's romance with, well, monsters. Inhuman creatures. Beasts, if you will. Beast! Huge shout out to this commenter for basically giving me my entire video idea. As a thank you, you get nothing. Actually no, you get my love and appreciation. Monster romance books are best known for telling stories where the main character's love interest is equal to a Kafkaesque monstrosity, because who couldn't resist these hotties? I mean, they got everything from tentacle monsters, isn't there an entire genre of anime porn about that? Werewolves and vampires, which really aren't that outlandish, and sometimes Satan himself. Basically, there's something for everybody.
There's room for everybody, let's just say that.
Sometimes the monsters in these stories still look humanoid, and other times they're just things. Monster romance is actually not that new of an idea in fiction. Beauty and the Beast is basically a textbook example of a monster romance, and depending on how you look at it, fucking Shrek could even be considered one. Which, thinking about it, monster romance girlies, I get you now. Basically, people have always written stories about loving the inhuman, maybe as a means of escapism, or just generally exploring the boundaries that fiction as a medium was basically crafted for. But remember, this is book talk. I don't think they're here to tell a story where a monstrous creature is used as an allegory of self-love and accepting someone for who they are. They just wanna, for the lack of a better term, butter their nub. Which is completely fine, by the way. Just making it clear that I'm not here to kink shame anybody. If this is what gets you going, good for you. However, as somebody who doesn't regularly dabble in this side of fiction, I'd be damned if some of these stories didn't take me on the wildest mental rides of my entire life. And if I had to suffer through this, what kind of YouTuber would I be if I didn't make my audience suffer with me? I learned from last time's trauma, so this time I brought my emotional support Yoshi with me. Let's just get this over with. She was supposed to fight the basilisk, not fuck him. The concept of a basilisk between your hoo-ha sounds like a sticky situation.
Some things in life are just better when they come in pairs. You know what I'm saying? Like, why have one when you can have two? So here's my book recommendations that include two.
Two of what? Two of Hearts by Stacey Q. He inserts his tail into her and uses it as a leash. He's 32 foot tall, she's 5 foot tall. His tail is his second Huh? I didn't think I'd be saying this, but I kinda like these people. Bring me to a function with any of these people, I guarantee you I'm gonna have the time of my fucking life. They're very aware that the stuff they're a fan of is freaky and outlandish as hell, and they still like it anyway. And that's commendable. If there's anything I've learned, it's that monster romance and dark romance are both extremely unhinged, but in two fundamentally different ways. Monster romance is the type of being crazy with your friends, kicking and rolling on the floor laughing type of unhinged. Dark romance is the diagnosed with 75 mental illnesses and should probably be in jail type of unhinged. Like, I kinda love this for them. Monster romance 1, dark romance 0. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, these books are absolutely insane. I want more. Let me help you with that. This time around, I actually wanted to check out some specific books, just to comprehend the amount of hinge that this genre is lacking. Well, my meticulous research led me to the book Morning Glory Milking Farm by author C.M. Nacosta, which, from that title and cover, made me realize that I might have hit a jackpot. Out of all the books I came across while preparing for this video, this one is hands down the funniest. My suspicions were confirmed when I scrolled down to read the synopsis and proceeded to be in tears for the next 5 minutes. The synopsis reads as follows. Violet is a typical down-on-her-luck millennial. Mid-20s, overeducated, and drowning in debt, on the verge of moving into her parents' basement. When a lifeline appears in the form of a very unconventional job in neighboring Cambric Creek, she has no choice but to grab at it with both hands. Morning Glory Milking Farm offers full-time hours, full benefits, and generous pay with no experience needed. There's only one catch. The clientele is grade A certified prime beef with the manly, meaty endowments to match. Milking Minotaur. Milking Minotaurs isn't something Violet ever considered as a career option, but she's determined to turn the opportunity into a reversal of fortune. I understand her because I am a broke bitch desperate for money too. When a stern, deep-voiced client begins to specially request her for his milking sessions, maintaining her professionalism and keeping him out of her dreams is easier said than done. Violet is resolved to make a dent in her student loans and afford name-brand orange juice, and a one-sided crush on an out-of-her-league Minotaur is not a part of her plan, unless her feelings aren't so one-sided after all. Content warnings include cock milking, non-human anatomy, size difference, and a lot of fluid. It is the first book in the Cambric Creek Monster Romance series, and can be read as a standalone. Whew! Okay, thank God it can be read as a standalone. This synopsis is so fucking good, and I just know that the book itself has so much more untapped comedic value to it that I decided to do something that I've never done on this channel before, which is filming my live reaction to a chapter of this book. I do not know how this is gonna turn out. This may not be funny at all, but we'll see. So mentally prepare yourself, maybe grab a glass of water, because I just know that we're gonna be in for something. I don't know what that dramatic ass transition was for. It's like 1 hour later. Probably should have gotten drunk before doing this. Anyways, let's begin. Her voice was accusing, and an affronted scowl creased over his broad, handsome face. Violet noticed immediately the absence of the ring in his nose. The unencumbered nostrils flared in indignation, feeling a pang of regret that she had not been there to see him in the days following its removal. You don't need a one-sided infatuation, remember? The voice in her head was right, she reminded herself. This is very relatable. I have voices in my head too, and that's why I'm seeing a doctor. The time away had been good for clearing her head of the cobwebs of senseless lust she'd allowed to spool and stretch, obliterating her good sense. Being back under her parents' roof and sleeping in her childhood bed for the preceding 2 weeks had done wonders for shaking thoughts of the messy-haired Minotaur away. Okay, so I picked a chapter that's not even at the fucking farm. My bad. Pining after a client isn't part of the plan, especially one like this. She exhaled sharply, knowing the voice was right. He had probably been out with a dozen different women since you've been gone, putting himself back on the meat market. On the meat market, okay. Where have you been? I had to practically twist someone's arm off just to find out if you still worked here. Okay, so I think this is the sexy Minotaur. His scowl deepened, and she very nearly laughed aloud at the deep crease between his narrowed eyes, his wide mouth pulling into an exaggerated frown. It didn't matter how many pep talks she'd given herself over the past week. Didn't matter what she told herself about the futility of her crush or the inappropriateness of harboring such feelings for a client. The instant traitorous thoughts crossed her mind, all of her willpower went crashing to the ground. He'd been there with her for every minute she'd been away, imagining his arms coming around her when she cried and the warmth of his hide pressed against her at night. It was foolish to attempt to persuade herself otherwise. Despite it seeming like the week had already been endless, it was only her second day back to work after being absent for 2 weeks. Although she'd never been able to prove it, Violet was certain that Magda, no idea who the fuck that is, had given her the most challenging rotation since she returned. The very first client the previous day had been one of the most vocal of the good little cows, lowing enthusiastically as she stoked him, and things had quickly deteriorated from there. I'm not gonna read this out loud, y'all. I live with family. I'm not gonna read this out loud. The Minotaur had moaned, bucking wildly against the padded stalks above her. She had begun to compare every Minotaur she worked on to Rourke, comparing their endowments and the way they felt in her hands. That bull's had been long and pink and thin like a writhing tent. Her hands had missed the heavy weights she'd grown to prefer as she struggled to maintain rhythm, wringing the slippery snake-like appendage in between the constant encouragement they liked to receive. It had been a long few weeks. Her great-aunt's death had been unexpected. Wait, so we went from fucking Minotaur cock milking to grandparents dying. Okay. Amazing shift in tone, honestly. When her maternal grandmother had died, she was a child. Her sister had filled the hole left behind for Violet and her mother both. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't care about this death. I want to get back to the smuts. Adding on the frustration of 2 long, challenging days worth of clients had her on the edge. All she wanted to do was to collapse against the big Minotaur before her, bury her face in his broad chest, and never let go. That, she reminded herself with a swallow, was impossible, and she had a job to do. Poor thing, she laughed, ignoring his question and flashing a grin back at his scowl before ducking beneath the bench. The sight of his cock was like greeting an old friend, and she had to fight the urge to lean forward and... I'm feeling like a fucking Victorian child seeing an ankle for the first time. We'll have to be extra gentle on your delicate, shaved bits. The lubricant the farm supplied was far thicker than anything she'd ever illicitly purchased at the small pharmacy near her apartment. Thick and vicious, with a pleasing slip and slide. Pumping a bit more into her gloved palm than she usually used, she slickened back her hands before wrapping them around his thick shaft. Her sigh of contentment echoed from overhead. It was the end of the day, Violet reminded herself, and there was no other client booked for this room. A plentiful, speedy collection was what she strove to achieve each day, but it had been a long 2 weeks, and she was tired. Tired and frustrated, and there was no one working that would think to come to the collection room to see what was taking so long. She'd earned this, and she wasn't inclined to rush. I think we're getting to the smut, finally. But I don't know if I can take it. The first client I had today was new, like new. He'd never done this before. Same girl. She tightened her grip slightly as she slid her slickened palms against him, running her thumbs up the thick vein that snaked up his shaft until she reached the tip. Reversing direction, she worked his foreskin back, letting her palms press into his shiny, exposed head until he hissed. Can I even put this on YouTube? Actually, I think I might need to censor a lot of this. She smiled at the roughness in his voice. She intended on enjoying this milking session and wanted him to do as well. Oh, it did not. Not at all. Talking as she stroked seemed to be a new, previously undiscovered level of intimacy. She could easily imagine herself having the conversation in bed on a Sunday morning, curled against his side as her hands moved, feeling the hot huff of his breath against her. It was a cozy thought, a warm thought, and she closed her eyes before immersing herself into the daydream fully. She held his cock with both hands now, her thumbs moving in rhythmic circles at the base of his head, pressing into his... He literally had no clue. I had to instruct him to take his pants off, show him how to get into the chair. The young bull had possessed the odd combination of cocky swagger, brand new sentence, and wide-eyed confusion, and she'd blown out an impatient breath, aggravated that she was being set up to have a repeat of previous day's annoyance. He lost his erection. Twice! The horror. The Minotaur from that afternoon had lost his cockiness the second his pants had come off. And he'd stood there expectantly, as if she were going to climb the staircase to the upper level, and ooh, okay. The domed head of his seemed extra appealing that day. Oh my god, this shit just doesn't fucking end. Wow, this is long. The domed head of his seemed extra appealing that day, the tips of her fingers grazing it gently, teasing his back and forth, up and down, caressing the inside of the sensitive sheath until he groaned. Circumcising this would have been a crime, she thought. Sliding the loose skin back until his full head popped free, like an especially delicious mushroom sprouting from the earth. Author, what the fuck are you doing to me? She'd missed him so much, and seeing him, talking with him, flirting with him, hearing the sharp bark of his voice and feeling its reverberation down her back, felt like coming home. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. The knowledge that while she'd been home with her family, mourning their loss, going through old photo albums, and helping her mother clean out drawers, she'd been thinking of him. But not like this. They'd go back to bed and snuggle and talk and watch nostalgic movies as the sky outside darkened. But first, he would f her until they were both satisfied, filling her with spurts after spurts of his extremely valuable seed. Is it really worth the views? His deep groan brought her back to the present, his solid, heavy thrusts against the padded breathing bench of an echo chamber. As she worked the buzzing nozzle over the head of his with no time to spare, he continued to rock against her hands when the green light clicked on, lowing as he throbbed in her hands, and gods, how she missed him. She wanted to know everything about him, how he liked his eggs, what he would feel like pressed to her side at night, the roughness of his tongue, how he took care of his horns, if he was close to his family, and if he would ever turn her over his knee, as if Guileless had suggested. Following the pulse of his as the thrust began to weaken, she found him press her thumb against the visibly throbbing points behind his sack, massaging into his her pussy clenching when he bucked in response.
Oh, bitch, I'm pussy!
His hooves scraped for the purchase against the footrest, and he groaned again, filling the machine with a fresh torrent of semen as she pressed against his sweet spot, squeezing her thighs together in time to the ropes of white splattering the glass. A click and whir for the collection unit made her jump, as she turned sharply, just in time to see the second bottle rotating into place. He said nothing as she cleaned him off, giving the customary squeeze with which she always ended things, and remained quiet as she tacked the two bottles, the second barely filled to the quarter line. Turning back to the breeding bench, she was able to see his wide horn still there, laying stock still. I feel like I should have paid for that, he groaned. No, I feel like I should have paid for this. She realized, freezing on the steps, that from this vantage point she had the perfect view of his round backside and his thick thighs, completing the fantasy of what it might be like to have him in her bed. I think you may have killed me.
So what are you gonna say at my funeral now that you've killed me?
His cock swayed between his thighs, soft and spent and still completely enormous, a hypnotic pendulum as she staggered the half-dozen paces across the room where his pants rested over the hair back. She watched in fascination as he carefully guided his hooves through each leg, palming his tail and smoothing it through the small slit in the fabric backseat, bending to fasten and secure each pant leg over his jutting hocks, dress shirt tucked in and smooth, cock tucks away and fly zipped. He didn't look up until he was bucking his belt, and Violet could almost convince herself that they were in some cozy little domestic tableau together, dressing for work before he kissed her goodbye. It's strange. You see someone every week. You talk to them. They're a part of your routine, your schedule. They become part of your life. You share a certain level of intimacy with them. You miss them when they're gone. You can almost convince yourself you know them because you start to fill in the blanks on your own. But you never really know. Me when one of my subscribers leaves a hate comment. A vice had fastened over her heart at his words, so similar to what she herself had been thinking over. There was a death in the family. What a way to kill the vibe. His broad face sobered in a flash, his forehead wrinkling. I'm so sorry to hear that. My condolences. Was it someone close? Let's get out of here. Come grab a coffee with me. You can tell me about them. He was close enough for her to feel the heat of his body, the pad of his thumb velvety soft as he cradled the side of her face in his huge hand, catching one of the tears and smoothing it away against her skin. She had not expected such softening from him, always so sharp and brusque, but her head tipped up all the same, willing to meet his mouth if he leaned down just a fraction more. His thunderclap voice too had softened, deep and comforting. With no hint of demand, she nodded, wanting nothing more than to be there with him, be somewhere, anywhere other than the farm. Go on then, punch out. I'll get us a table, probably going to need to flip over a booth of teenagers, but it's fine. They'll bounce. She could feel the weight of his hand on her back as she drifted down the steps as if the heat of him had burned an imprint on her skin. A glow she was certain the whole world could see as she collected her things and clocked out with her heart in her mouth. This is it. You can do this. Coffee first, then tomorrow, you can lock yourself into his house and never ever leave. It was, Violet was certain, a perfect plan. Yeah, I'm not sure if this was a good idea. That was genuinely everything for today. Oh god, I kind of forgot my usual outro. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe, and if you see me out on the street with this book, mind your business. That's all I had to say for today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!